When SWAT officers tossed an elderly woman and mocked her husband, 5 words from a quiet mechanic stopped them cold, revealing a war hero who changed everything. On a crisp September afternoon, 68-year-old Henry Sullivan was elbows deep under Mrs. Larson's old Chevy, the scent of motor oil grounding him as classic rock hummed from his garage radio. His hands, weathered by decades of fixing engines and carrying unspoken burdens, trembled slightly with age but moved with purpose. To Oakwood Drive, Henry was the neighbor who mended carburetors, but beneath his grease-stained flannel lay a 27-year history of classified missions, medals hidden in a shoebox. His heart, tethered to his wife Clara after 43 years, beat steady until the screech of tires shattered the peace. Fear prickled his spine. Too aggressive, too deliberate for their quiet street. Black SUVs swarmed his driveway, blocking the sun. SWAT officers in tactical gear spilled out, their shouts, "Police!" Everyone on the ground, slicing through Henry's calm. His stomach churned as he slid from under the car, hands raised, grease smearing his fingers. "There's a mistake," he started, voice steady but laced with dread. A rifle barrel silenced him and a barked order, "Down now," forced him to the concrete. The cold ground bit into his cheek, zip ties cutting into his wrists. Humiliation burned in his chest, not for himself, but for the life he'd chosen to shield from such chaos, a life of service now mocked by the boots circling him. Through the chaos of radios and commands, Henry's heart stopped as Clara's sedan pulled in. She stepped out, grocery bags trembling in her arthritic hands, her face crumpling with confusion. "Henry, what's happening?" she called, voice fragile. 3 officers spun, weapons trained on her 65-year-old frame. "Drop the bags?" "Hands up," they bellowed. Clara froze, bags clutched to her chest, fear widening her eyes. "Please, she stammered. "Non-compliant," a young officer snapped, his voice shrill with adrenaline. Henry's throat tightened, desperation surging. "She's my wife." "Just groceries," he shouted, a boot pressing harder into his back. "Step back, old man, or you're next," another growled. The taser's crack split the air. Clara convulsed, bags exploding, eggs shattering, apples rolling, milk pooling under boots. She collapsed, a puppet with severed strings, and Henry's world tilted. Rage and terror clawed at him, memories of covert ops flooding back, jungles, gunfire, comrades falling, yet he clung to discipline, swallowing the scream in his throat. His heart pounded for Clara, her heart condition now a ticking threat. Zip-tied and helpless, he locked eyes with the commander, his voice low but ironclad. "Call General Kane right now." The words, born of decades of authority, hung heavy, a lifeline cast through the chaos. Henry's chest ached with love and fury, knowing Clara's pain was the cost of a mistake these officers hadn't bothered to verify. As the SWAT team hesitated, his resolve hardened. This wasn't just about him. It was about protecting the woman who'd anchored him through every unseen war. The chaos that erupted on Oakwood Drive, where Henry Sullivan was pinned to the concrete by a SWAT team and his wife Clara was tossed for carrying groceries, stripped away the quiet life he'd carefully built. The 68-year-old, his hands still smeared with grease from fixing Mrs. Larson's Chevy, had faced the officer's aggression with a steely calm, his 5 words, "Call General Kane right now," cutting through their bravado. The sting of humiliation burned in Henry's chest, not for the zip ties cutting into his wrists, but for Clara, crumpled on the driveway. Her pain a searing reminder of how their peaceful world had been shattered by a mistaken address. Beneath his worn flannel and stoic silence lay a past the officers couldn't fathom, one that made their assumptions a cruel irony. Henry Sullivan was no ordinary mechanic. Born in 1957, he joined the Army at 19. Serving 27 years in covert operations that left no trace in history books. His missions, silent extractions in Angola, sabotage in unnamed deserts, hostage rescues in regions he couldn't name, earned him medals he hid in a shoebox, their weight too heavy for display. Each scar on his body, each tremor in his hands, told of nights spent navigating jungles or defusing crises under enemy fire. The SWAT team's scorn, "old man," echoed the ignorance of young soldiers he'd once trained, who learned too late that his unassuming presence masked a mind sharper than their rifles. Henry's heart, though hardened by war, softened for Clara, his wife of 43 years. who'd nursed him through nightmares in silence, her love a beacon through his transition to civilian life. In their modest ranch-style home, Henry found refuge, trading tactical gear for wrenches. Oakwood Drive knew him as the man who fixed engines, but his true calling was service. Thursdays found him at the VFW, counseling veterans. Saturdays, he built wheelchair ramps for those wounded in wars he understood too well. On Tuesdays, he taught auto shop to high schoolers others had given up on, seeing potential where others saw failure. His garage, filled with tools and classic rock, was a sanctuary, but the Tasers' crack and Clara's fall shattered that peace. The officer's failure to verify the address, 4588 Oakwood Drive, not Avenue, mirrored their blindness to Henry's worth, a man whose protocols they'd unknowingly breached. Henry's past wasn't just a resume, it was a lifeline. The Black Eagle badge in his jacket, a relic of black protocol clearance, was a key to a world the SWAT team couldn't access. His calm demand for General Kane wasn't bravado but necessity, a shield for Clara, whose heart condition now loomed like a specter. As he knelt, zip-tied, watching her lie motionless, Henry's heart ached with a soldier's resolve and a husband's fear. The officers saw an old man. They missed the ghost who'd shaped modern tactics, whose legacy of service made their mistake not just a procedural error, but a betrayal of the respect he'd earned in shadows. The chaos on Oakwood Drive, where Henry Sullivan's storied past as a covert operative was buried beneath the SWAT team's mistaken raid, reached a breaking point as his wife Clara lay motionless from a taser's jolt. Henry, the 68-year-old veteran, pinned to the concrete, his hands zip-tied and heart pounding with fear for Clara's heart condition, had issued a calm but commanding demand: call General Kane right now. The officers scorned, dismissing him as a nameless old man, stung, but Henry's decades of service in Angola, deserts, and beyond had taught him patience under pressure. His Black Eagle badge, a relic of black protocol clearance hidden in his jacket, was a silent testament to a life the SWAT team couldn't imagine. As Clara's groceries lay scattered, Henry's resolve held firm, his eyes locked on the commander, waiting for truth to prevail. 40 minutes into the ordeal, a black SUV with military plates rolled up, its deliberate silence louder than the SWAT team's earlier bravado. The officers, still barking orders, froze as General Robert Kane emerged. At 62, his silver hair and charcoal suit radiated authority, his presence a storm cloud over the scene. Henry's heart flickered with recognition. Kane, a protege from a 1980s operation, owed his career to Henry's tactical genius. The SWAT commander, flustered, tried to intercept, but Kane strode past, his eyes fixed on Henry. Cut his restraints, Kane ordered, voice low but unyielding. As the zip ties fell, Henry rose, ignoring his aching joints, and met Kane's crisp salute with one of his own, their shared history speaking in the silence. The crowd of neighbors, filming from porches, fell hushed, sensing a shift. Kane turned to the SWAT team, his jaw tight with fury. This man wrote the civilian engagement protocols you just violated, he declared, gesturing to Henry, still in grease-stained flannel. You raided the wrong house, 4588 Oakwood Drive, not Avenue, and tossed a woman with a heart condition. The officers paled, the taser-wielding rookie trembling as Kane singled him out. You're relieved? Kane snapped, stripping him of his gear. The commander stammered, we had intelligence. But Kane cut him off, holding up Henry's badge. This is black protocol clearance. Henry Sullivan's operations shaped your training, and you humiliated a national asset. Henry's chest tightened, not with pride, but with sorrow for Clara, still dazed, and for a system that failed to verify before acting. The general's arrival unveiled Henry's hidden legacy. Missions that saved lives, protocols still in use, a career buried in classified files. Neighbors whispered, piecing together the mechanic's true identity. Kane's aide produced a file, Henry's unclassified record, and thrust it at the commander. Read it. The scene, now viral, exposed the SWAT team's error, but for Henry it was Clara's pain that cut deepest. Kane's presence was a mirror reflecting the respect Henry deserved. A respect that might have spared his wife if it had come first. As Henry knelt by Clara, checking her pulse, the SWAT team's rifles lowered, their arrogance replaced by shame. And Henry's quiet strength shone brighter than ever. The arrival of General Robert Kane on Oakwood Drive, where Henry Sullivan's quiet heroism was laid bare, transformed a mistaken SWAT raid into a profound lesson. Henry, the 68-year-old veteran whose covert missions had shaped modern tactics, stood by his tossed wife Clara, his heart heavy with her pain and the sting of the officer's earlier scorn. Kane's revelation that Henry was a national asset who authored the very protocols the SWAT team violated silenced the chaotic scene. The officers, who had mocked Henry's grease-stained flannel and dismissed his demand to call General Kane right now faced the weight of their error, a wrong address, excessive force, and a failure to respect the man before them. Henry's calm, five-word command had stopped the team in their tracks, a testament to his enduring authority. Kane's fury was surgical, his voice cutting through the SWAT team's shame. "You escalated without cause, ignored verification, and harmed a civilian," he said, pointing to Clara, still recovering from the taser's shock. Henry, though, saw beyond the moment's chaos. His eyes, hardened by decades in Angola and unnamed deserts, softened as he spoke to the commander. "You had adrenaline, not accountability. Respect starts with restraint." His words, delivered with the quiet force of a man who defused crises under fire, carried the lesson he'd lived. True strength lies in control, not aggression. Henry's heart ached for Clara, whose heart condition had been endangered, but his resolve was to teach, not condemn, hoping to spare others such pain. This lesson on control and respect resonated deeply. Henry could have fought back, his training surpassed the SWAT team's, but chose words over fists, proving that power doesn't need to shout. The officer's failure to check the address, 4588 Oakwood Drive, not Avenue, mirrored their rush to judge Henry as a threat. His Black Eagle badge, a relic of Black protocol clearance, had been ignored, just as his dignity was. "Verify before you act," Henry urged, his voice steady despite the zip-tie marks on his wrists. The crowd, filming from porches, absorbed his message, amplified by Kane's presence. A neighbor whispered, "He's not just a mechanic." As the viral video began to spread, carrying Henry's wisdom, "Respect every person, for their story may outshine your assumptions." Kane handed the commander Henry's unclassified record, demanding it be studied. The rookie who tossed Clara, now stripped of his gear, stood as a cautionary tale of unchecked force. Henry's lesson wasn't vengeance but reform, echoing his covert days when split-second decisions meant life or death. His calm in crisis, rooted in love for Clara and duty to others, showed that respect prevents harm, while control preserves dignity. As Clara leaned on him, Henry's heart swelled with hope that his words would ripple outward, ensuring no one else faced such reckless disregard. The SWAT team, humbled, lowered their rifles, and Henry's quiet strength became a beacon for a world too quick to act and too slow to listen. The lesson Henry Sullivan imparted on Oakwood Drive, where his calm demand to call General Kane right now, and his call for restraint over aggression humbled a reckless SWAT team, ignited a cascade of change. The 68-year-old veteran, whose covert missions and Black protocol clearance had been dismissed by officers who tossed his wife Clara, stood as a beacon of control and respect. General Kane's arrival had exposed the team's errors, wrong address, excessive force, and Henry's words, "Respect starts with restraint," became a rallying cry. As Clara recovered from the taser's shock, Henry's heart, heavy with her pain, swelled with hope that his lesson would prevent such harm to others, transforming a moment of chaos into a legacy of reform. The aftermath was swift and profound. The police department, stung by the viral video capturing the raid, issued a public apology and introduced the 5 Words Protocol, a mandatory training program emphasizing de-escalation, address verification, and civilian dignity. Henry's influence was unspoken but undeniable. Rookies now studied his unclassified record, learning from a man who'd written their engagement protocols. The video, amassing 10 million views, sparked the hashtag 5 Words Protocol, with civilians and veterans sharing stories of unchecked authority. The mayor declared September 15th as Henry Sullivan Day, and a plaque at 4588 Oakwood Drive bore his words, "Verify before you act." Henry, ever humble, shunned the spotlight, his focus on Clara's recovery and his quiet service. Community support surged. Neighbors, inspired by Henry's decades of fixing cars and building wheelchair ramps, donated $300,000 to the Sullivan Accessibility Fund, enabling ramps for 350 veterans' homes. Clara, her bruises fading but her spirit unbroken, stood taller, accompanying Henry to the grocery store with newfound defiance. The rookie who tossed her, reassigned to desk duty, visited Henry to apologize. "I didn't know who you were," he admitted. Henry, wiping grease from his hands, replied, "That's why you respect everyone." The officer began volunteering at the VFW, mentored by Henry, whose forgiveness mirrored the mercy he'd shown in covert ops. Police cruisers now slowed near Henry's home, officers nodding in respect, a silent acknowledgement of his impact. Nationally, the story, "Veterans' 5 Words Stop SWAT," dominated headlines, prompting police departments to review engagement protocols. Henry continued his routines, Thursdays at the VFW, Saturdays building ramps, Tuesdays teaching auto shop. Yet, the black SUV's occasional visits, leaving whiskey or blurred photos from his past, hinted at his enduring legacy in classified circles. When General Kane offered reinstatement, Henry declined, his heart tethered to Clara and their community. "My service is here," he said, tightening a bolt on a student's project. The ripple effect was clear. Recruits carried cards with 5 words: verify, respect, restrain, ensuring Henry's lesson endured. His truck, once ignored, now drew salutes, a symbol of a man whose quiet strength reshaped a town's values, proving that respect and accountability can heal wounds deeper than any taser's sting. The transformative outcomes of Henry Sullivan's ordeal on Oakwood Drive, where his 5 words, "Call General Kane right now," and his lesson of restraint reshaped a community, crystallized a profound truth. Henry, the 68-year-old veteran whose covert missions were overshadowed by a SWAT team's mistaken raid, saw his message of respect and accountability spark the 5 Words Protocol, $300,000 in donations for veterans' ramps, and a new era of police respect. As Clara recovered and their town declared Henry Sullivan Day, Henry's heart, anchored by love for her and a lifetime of service, carried a deeper conviction. True strength lies in restraint, mercy, and respecting every individual's unseen story, not in force or titles. This core message, strength is quiet, rooted in respect, not dominance, resonates in a world prone to snap judgments and unchecked power. Henry's choice to wield 5 words instead of his covert training, even as Clara lay tossed, reflected a discipline forged in Angola's jungles and classified operations. The SWAT team's error raiding 4588 Oakwood Drive, not Avenue, stemmed from dismissing Henry as just an old man, ignoring his Black Eagle badge and the protocols he authored. His response, "Respect starts with restraint," taught that true authority doesn't need to shout. It commands through clarity and compassion. Henry's heart ached for Clara's pain, but his refusal to retaliate showed that mercy can be mightier than vengeance. A lesson now etched in the hashtag 5 Words Protocol movement. The message rippled beyond Oakwood Drive. The viral video, trending with stories of overlooked heroes, challenged society to see beyond appearances, grease-stained flannel, a rusty truck, and ask, "Who is this person?" Henry's humility, declining General Kane's reinstatement to serve his community, embodied this truth. Respect is universal, owed to every mechanic, elder, or stranger whose story might mirror his own. His work building ramps, teaching troubled teens, comforting veterans was respect in action, proving that service never ends, only evolves. When a rookie asked why he spared the taser-wielding officer's career, Henry's reply, "Revenge doesn't fix people," echoed his belief that strength heals, not harms. This lesson, carried by police recruits' laminated cards and the Sullivan Accessibility Fund, is a call to action. The SWAT teams lowered rifles, the community's salutes to Henry's truck, and Clara's defiant posture reflected a world awakened to respect's power. Henry's story, splashed across headlines, urged us to verify before acting, to restrain impulses, and to honor the unseen valor in others. His porch, where Kane left whiskey and blurred photos, became a shrine to quiet heroes whose strength lies in standing their ground, not standing over others. For Henry, respect wasn't just a principle. It was a shield for Clara, a guide for rookies, and a legacy for a nation. His life, fixing engines, building ramps, choosing mercy, teaches that every face holds a story, and respecting it is the truest form of power, louder than any weapon and enduring beyond any metal. The story of Henry Sullivan, a 68-year-old veteran whose 5 words, "Call General Kane right now," halted a SWAT team's mistaken raid, offers a powerful lesson. True strength lies in restraint and respect, not in hasty judgments or force. When officers wrongly raided Henry's home and tossed his wife Clara, dismissing him as an old man, they overlooked his covert military legacy. Henry's calm response, rooted in decades of service, transformed chaos into reform, sparking the 5 words protocol, $300,000 for veterans ramps, and a community-wide shift toward accountability. His story teaches us to approach every person with respect, as their unseen story may hold extraordinary valor. This lesson challenges us to pause before judging based on appearances, be it a grease-stained mechanic or an elderly neighbor. Henry's choice of words over violence, despite his training, shows that restraint is a mark of strength, preventing harm like Clara's tossing. His call for verification and respect, now taught to police recruits, urges us to verify facts and restrain impulses in our own lives, whether in conflicts at work, home, or online. The hashtag 5 words protocol movement reminds us that everyone carries a hidden story, and respecting it fosters empathy and connection. Henry's humility, declining reinstatement to serve his community, and his mercy toward the officer who tossed Clara, teach that respect heals, not divides. By embracing this, we build communities where dignity prevails over assumptions, ensuring no one is diminished as just anything. Let Henry's example inspire us to act with restraint, verify before judging, and honor every individual's worth, knowing that the quietest among us may be the strongest, their stories waiting to be respected.